Hi guys, I'm Laura and welcome to part 2 of how to become a school psychologist. Make sure you checked out part 1. If you didn't, this part may not make a whole lot of sense. However, we are picking up with you've gotten into a program, you've made a decision, and you have started your graduate education to become a school psychologist. So if you are currently in a school psychology program, this might be very helpful for you. So you're in a program to become a school psychologist. Whether that is a specialist or a doctorate program does not matter a whole lot. These next steps are going to be the same for everyone. Technically, step 7, but this is get as much practical experience as you can. I talked about in my 5 things I wish I knew before I started grad school, as well as part 1 of this video, that practical experience, so during your practicum, is invaluable. It will make or break your experience. Oh my gosh, super important. Cannot stress how important it is. What you learn in your classes is important, but I'll be honest, what you do in your practicum is just, like I said, it differs between school psychologists, student to student. But in my mind, that is really what makes us all different and have different approaches to problems, how we see school problems, how we address them, how we work with other people. It's a huge deal. Anyway, you get the point. My suggestion would be to try to get as diverse an experience as you can. So with that being said, you probably have 2 years, maybe 3 or 4 if you're going for your doctorate. But the point is to try to get different experiences. So if 1 year you're in a school district that's, a suburbs, middle class, pretty standard, outside of a city kind of experience, your next year you probably want to get a more inner city, diverse students, less resources kind of experience. So you definitely want to vary. If you just go in having only experienced one type of school and one type of school system, if you ever end up in something a little different, it's going to be a little shocking. Personal experience, first year I was at a suburban middle class school, very close to where I grew up actually. The next year, I was placed at an elementary school that is located in one of America's most dangerous cities, which sounds really weird, but it's a small town outside of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Huge crime rate, high drug rate, really impoverished area. It's a very industrial area. A lot of factories and companies have left a lot of people out of work, a lot of violence, gang activity. Completely different than what I had experienced. The students were different, the system was different, how the school addressed certain problems, very different. What was seen as a problem, very different. Invaluable experience. Super glad I did it. Totally was not ready as a second year school psychology student, having never really worked in an area like that, really experienced that. Changed a lot of things for me. So that was super valuable. And then the year after that, I went to back to another suburban area, different than the first time. And then I purposefully worked more with middle school and high schoolers because I really focused a lot on elementary and I wanted to make sure I got that K through 12 experience. So that's another thing of when you're doing your practicum experience, make sure you ask for what you want. So that may seem really obvious, but it's not. Some supervisors won't. Some supervisors say, this is what you're here to do, here's what I have for you, go for it. But a lot of people, if you are a practicum student, you're useful. You have a lot of different skills that you're working on. In my final practicum year, like I said, I really wanted to work on my counseling skills. I had done that a little bit in my second year, but I wanted to expand on that, worked with different ages, different problems. So that was something I purposely went out and looked for, especially because I was I don't know how much time I'll have to do this on internship or moving forward into my career. So I want to make sure I really get to work on those skills. So if you don't know if that's the plan of you to do, ask and just see. So try to get as many different experiences as you can in different settings with different types of students. It will end up really helping you in the end. So step 8 is to go on internship. Once again, this is another thing that could probably have its own video, but we're just going to kind of hit the basics here. So you have finished your education portion, you have finished your practicum experience, you're going on internship. Again, whether you are a specialist level or at a doctorate level, how you go about that is going to look a little different, but ultimately, to become a school psychologist, the requirements are the same. So I'm pretty sure NASP only requires 1,200 hours. Most recommend 15 to 2,000 hours completed in a year. So when you go on internship, I would recommend shooting for a minimum 1,500. You need to complete 1,500 hours of supervised experience. You're not to be practicing independently. You're not on your own yet. You technically haven't graduated yet. The idea is to really give you those stepping stones so you can be practicing independently as a school psychologist. So internship, similarly to your practicum experience, super invaluable. The biggest thing I've noticed between like specialist and doctorate level, if you're specialist level, it's probably going to be local to where you are. It's probably going to be a school district that like has a relationship with your program. A lot of people don't go super far. Just depending on how many students and the availability, it's a little different versus as for doctorate, you might be applying to places across the country. I did. Everyone in my program did. We ended up literally across the country, whereas specialist level in the area where I was from stayed in the area. The big thing to know is that it is a stepping. You need to be scaffolded, right? So on day one, you shouldn't be just given a school and go forth, work on this. It really is meant to be like a guided experience. So, and you might even do it not in a school. Just know that, probably, but may not. But the point is really, like I said, to start out slow, a small caseload, more guided. Here's what you should be doing. This is what it looks like. You should have your supervisor really hands-on. You're supposed to be getting at least 2 hours a week of individual supervision and 2 hours a week of group supervision. That might be an APA rule. I think it's a NASP rule. But there should be lots of guidance, lots of hands-on. Then as you progress, the hands will come off a little bit, but it's definitely meant to be guided. So my point is, if you are looking at an internship or someone has mentioned an internship where they're like, yeah, I just test all day and then I hand it over and that's it, and I did that for 9 months. That's not a good internship. You don't want to do that. So when you do go on internship, there's probably similarly to getting in, going to be like an interview process and that whole thing to go through. So again, make sure you're asking lots of questions. If you have people who are currently there, make sure you talk to them. Step 9 is taking the praxis. So I put this more towards the internship realm. Some people take it a lot sooner. Some people don't take it till they're done with internship. The praxis is another test that you have to take, but it is specifically for school psychologists, and it's by the same makers as the SAT and the GRE, which you've just recently taken. Same thing, good news, it's computer administered. You go to a place, it's all like multiple choice. I'll be honest, it was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. I definitely overstudied because my program had told all of us, they said, no one's ever not passed on the first time. Good news, if you don't pass the first time, you get to take it again. No big deal. But because our program said no one's ever not passed the first time, we all freaked out. We all studied together and we all passed with flying colors. It was not a big deal. So the praxis is similar to things that like a teacher would take in order to become a teacher. It's basically saying, do you have the minimum necessary knowledge to practice in this field? So like I said, it's not super intensive. I definitely would recommend studying, like I wouldn't just go in blind, but I know in part 1, we had talked about, do I want a NASP approved program or not a NASP approved program? Again, this is one of those instances, if you go to a NASP approved program, you know 100% that the information on the praxis has been covered in your classes. If you don't go to a NASP approved program, you can't guarantee that. So again, things where it might be a little more difficult in the long run. Again, there's plenty of practice study books that go over the information you need. You can absolutely pass it and be perfectly fine. Even if you didn't go to a NASP approved program, it's not a big deal. The only reason I mention it here is because it is something that is required in order for you to become a school psychologist, and it's just kind of one of those extra steps we all have to go through, right? So take the praxis, take the praxis, don't stress out about it, but study, but you'll be fine. If you showed up in class, you did what you need to do, you have all that knowledge, it's there, you just have to put it out during the test, but you will be fine. Last 2 steps. Step number 10 is to apply for certification in your state. Now, the challenging part of this is when you'll be starting to apply for jobs more than likely while you're on internship. You're not the only one, don't stress out. A lot of school districts know that. They know that you've probably already taken the praxis at this point by the time you're applying for jobs, so like you've passed it, that's good. The last thing you're waiting on is finishing your internship hours, and then your supervisor basically has to sign off saying that you did the hours you claimed you did. When you apply for certification, that's basically all they're looking for. They just want to know, did you pass the praxis? Did you finish your internship? That's it. Some states are a little bit more tricky. They have something called a jurisprudence exam. Basically, it means do you know the laws in that state? I've seen that more so for doctorate level when you're becoming a licensed psychologist, but I had heard of a couple states that do require that to become a school psychologist. Basically, they're asking you, do you know special education and education law? Again, from what I've heard, I did not have to take this for the state I'm currently in, but what I've heard, it's usually there's some sort of study material. As long as you look over it, you will be fine. But you want to make sure that you get a hold of your state's Department of Education. I'm in Missouri. It's called DESE. There's an online application process. You pay some money. Sometimes there's something that like either your university that you graduated or about to graduate from, as well as your supervisor from your internship have to sign off on. As long as you have that, you're good. So that was not like a stressful process at all. It was very simple. The only thing to say about applying for certification is you do have to wait until you graduate. That was kind of tricky for me because technically I graduated in August. I needed to start work in August. But like I said, once I had the diploma, I was all set. So it really was not that difficult, but you do have to make sure you get certified in your state or you are not able to practice as a school psychologist. You cannot practice unless you are certified. So, also mentioned previously in part 1 about being a nationally certified school psychologist. That is an additional thing. You still need to be certified by your state. The benefit of being nationally certified is some places will accept that in place of being state certified if you move from one place to another. You should get state certification. It's easy, it doesn't take that long. As long as you've done everything you need to do up to this point, you'll get it. It's not like a question of if, it's just a question of filling out papers. Similarly to being nationally certified, as long as you've done what you need to do, it's a matter of filling out papers. If you go to a NASP approved program, it's a lot faster. If you didn't go to a NASP approved program, you have to turn in a lot of paperwork. Even like syllabi from your various classes saying that you learned about the things they wanted you to learn about. Like I said, gets kind of complicated. If you went to a NASP approved program, it makes it a lot simpler. So you graduated from your program, you're certified in your state, and you are ready to start your new job. This is step number 11, the last step. Get a school psychologist job. My recommendation when you're looking at jobs, make sure you're looking at the contracts. They are different lengths, they ask you to do different things, and they are not the same district to district. So I know I've looked at plenty of jobs, all the job descriptions kind of look the same, they say similar things. They might, but they are not exactly the same. I've mentioned this in some of my school psychology videos that one of the benefits of being a school psychologist is you very often get summers off, also holidays. That is not true of all school psychology positions. Some are all year round, some are not. Make sure you look at that. They'll tell you how many days the contract is, and that's usually like how many school days, and then if you have some like in-service days, where some will say like 200 something, you probably are going into summer. So make sure you're taking a look at that. And then you also want to look at, are you considered a teacher or are you in a different category? So a lot of school districts, much to most school psychologists' chagrin, are considered teachers. So they get teacher pay, but that also means they follow the same rules as teachers. So like for instance, where I am, recently had a snow day. Because I'm considered a teacher, I did not have to come to school that day, whereas administrators and people who are on all year round contracts still have to go to school even if school is canceled. So, blessing and a curse, didn't have to go, but I get paid less. So, it's kind of the decision you want to make. So like I said, it depends. And then honestly, what your role could be is very different. I know in my district, I've talked about it that, I help run the RTI process in addition to my evaluations. I have a counseling caseload. I do a lot of consultation with both behavior and academics. Whereas a neighboring district, they do not give certain assessments like other people do. They write a lot of reports and they are more like case managers. So they make sure like everything's in compliance. In a different neighboring school district, the school psychologists write the IEPs. I don't do that. So like I said, even though all the jobs are similar, there's going to be differences between them. And I'm going to say this because a very dear friend of mine is at the district where she has to write the IEPs, and she absolutely hates it. Like, just hates it. We completed our internship together. I was able to stay at the district I'm currently at. There was just a timing issue. She went to a neighboring district, hates it. But she's not allowed to leave because she's contractually bound. So other things you might want to look at, like what would happen if you wanted to leave in the middle year? What if you have a significant other that's gonna leave? Are you able to move, or do you have to buy out your contract? So just employment things to think about, but also that she did not talk to any school psychologists in that district. She talked to like teachers, and she knew some parents there, and they all spoke really highly of that district. Whereas if she had talked to some of the school psychologists, they were not of the same opinion. So that's my big suggestion of talk to as many people as you can. Everyone has different experiences and opinions, so make sure you're talking to them. It will make a big difference. So that was my final step. Step 11 was to get a job in school psychology. Also, I don't know if you're aware, if you're at this point, there is a shortage of school psychologists. They are always looking for school psychologists. It's just probably not in a major metropolitan area. So, I am from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That is an area with a number of school psychology programs. There is not a school psychologist shortage there. Whereas I moved to the Midwest, constantly looking. There's always open positions, even in the middle of the year. They post the jobs really early for the next year, trying to get people in. And there's lots of places that there's recruiters, agencies always trying to get school psychologists. There's Facebook groups always posting jobs. So, because I've had this question, that's why I was saying this. If you're worried about getting a job, there are jobs. You can 100% have a job as soon as you graduate. It might not be exactly the job you're looking for or in the location you're looking for. So that is the only thing I wanted to mention. And again, specialist, doctorate, doesn't matter. There are places that need school psychologists that will hire you today. But again, like I said, it just might not be exactly what you're looking for. But also, if they're really looking for someone, they might be more open to negotiation, which can be really hard on education. In education settings, it's kind of like set, here's what it is. But also negotiating, like, what exactly is your role? You're like, no, I want to run RTI, I want a counseling caseload. I don't want to just test and do special education. So if they're in need of a school psychologist, they might be a little bit more open to that. versus an area that is not really looking or has, you know, a full number of school psychologists who are a little bit more strict about those types of things. So it's just all types of things to keep in mind, but know that we need school psychologists. We want you in this field. I know I just went through like a ton of steps to become a school psychologist, but really the vast majority of them are getting into the program. Once you're in, your program is going to help you. They're more than likely going to help you get an internship. Once you're on internship, your supervisor will help you become credentialed, might help you find a job. You might get hired from your internship. Like there are just a lot of good steps after that. It's kind of just getting started is the hardest part. And I think that's kind of been a barrier for a lot of people getting into school psychology, either having not heard of the profession or the programs aren't everywhere. So sometimes that can be hard. Like I might have to move across the country or go to somewhere I've never been or don't want to go. So some barriers, but all in all, this is a fabulous, fabulous job. It's not a job, it's a life. I don't know how else to say it. I love what I do. The vast majority of people I work with as school psychologists love what they do. There's lots of different options of how exactly you want to fulfill the role. There's different options that even if you go into school psychology and you say, well, I don't want to work at a school district, there's still options where you can service children and make a big difference and impact in their life with the training that you've had and still being a psychologist. People look to you for answers, for guidance. Like I said, and I love being part of a school, in a school system. Not everyone does. I think it has a ton of benefits. So again, if you are ever thinking, I love helping children, I'd love to be able to help them somewhere that is really important to them, which is school. Remember how important school was to us growing up? It's our everything. So it's a great profession and I love it. And it sounded really complicated to become a school psychologist, but it's really not. So if you enjoy learning about how to become a school psychologist, make sure that you like and subscribe, and then go ahead and click the bell button so that you get notified every time I make a video. I love school psychology, I'm all about it, and my plan is to bring you more school psychology content. So if you haven't already, make sure you check out some of my other videos, and I'll be bringing more to you. So thank you for watching. I am Laura, and I will see you next time.